Hey everyone, this is Nick with Tenacity AI, and you're listening to the Cloud Cost Optimization Podcast. With my co-host Jason, today we're interviewing one of the co-founders of Tenacity AI itself, our chief engineer, Andrew. So Andrew, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about what you do at Tenacity.
So I'm Andrew Lake, and at Tenacity, I'm kind of the Andrew of all trades, specifically lead developer, do a lot of project management, help out the team, just make sure that everything is really running smoothly. And, whenever we have a new product requirement or a feature or anything like that, I help break that down and also work on the design of the app and just really try to get things from start to finish,
Very cool. Is Tenacity your first startup?
Yeah, so Tenacity is my first startup venture. Before that, I was primarily working freelance. I did a lot of open source development work, for some firms as a contractor, just kind of around the world, and kind of got my feet wet with one job, which was just recent, working in kind of the banking and
That's not
compliance
recent
area.
anymore. COVID has skewed all of our time. Like
That's
2 years of COVID
no,
is like
4
years
at this point.
of regular time. Yeah, exactly. What's your
I'm
favorite
getting
thing
older,
about
too.
what you do on a day-to-day basis, Andrew?
I get to work together with some really incredible people. Well, first of all, Nick and Jason, who sorry, I'll do that again. First of all, Nick and Jason, who we have right here. It's been a ride, I'd say. It's exciting, but I've also had the privilege of working together with some of my close friends, Jan Dolansky and Yoko Hamano, for instance. Jan is an absolute menace when it comes to anything UI and just pushing things across the finish line. And he's pretty much the person I want to go to whenever I have an idea and I need to bring it into reality. And I used to be that person, so it's interesting kind of being one level up now and, still like relinquishing some of that control, but still coming up with a really fantastic product at the end.
It's definitely a different experience when you cross that threshold into having to trust someone else to do something as well as you will. It's one of the hardest parts about
It's scary.
being a founder, being a leader. Yeah, it's exceedingly difficult until you kind of get your arms around it. And realize that people aren't going to do it the same way you would do it. And that's honestly a good thing, because if our experience was designed by me, it would be awful. So I'm glad that it's designed by Jan and you. Otherwise, it would not be half as good as it as
we get
as it is. And that's just part of the trust. It's part of the journey.
Designed by one of us.
I think it's also a little scary, at least in my shoes, coming from a point where you may not, and this is just in UI, and I'm specifically going to dive into that, user experience in general. I find it's always hard to come up with something objectively right, because it just doesn't exist. You have to kind of trust your gut feeling. You have to trust the people that you're working with, and especially in that sense, being one level up and then managing multiple people, you really you can take kind of a firm stance and say, okay, this is the way we're doing it. You have to take in everyone's opinion and really try to accentuate the things that they're really good at. And I know Jan, for instance, just to call him out again, he's fantastic at taking an idea and, designing it, but at the same time, then your next goal as kind of the higher up is to nudge him in certain directions. And that way, you as, the person creating this also still have that control, but the person that you're working with also feels like they have the control over this new feature. And I think doing those small nudges is what kind of gets you to the level of quality that we have. Is we don't really know where we are today, but we kind of know where we want to be, but it's never going to be exactly the way you had it intended.
Well, I think you hit on, experience is really hard because you go intuitively, you go off your own experience first. and it's not always contextually correct because you live in it every day. So we live in this data every day, right? We live in billing data. And so sometimes we think something's really intuitive, like, oh, look at the superpower I'm going to have in doing all this. And you get a user in front of it and they go like, I don't really understand how this all works. And you have to rethink. You have to rethink that from their perspective, and that's a hard headspace to get in. I think you all, as an engineering team and as product folks, do a really good job of trying to work to get in their head. And it's always exciting when we have you all on a call with a customer and we get off of it and you go, oh, I know what to do, because you get that kind of direct feedback. It isn't in translation, and it kind of takes intuition into reality, and you go, wow, I see how they used it, and it's here's how we adjust it. I think it's hard. It's hard to capture. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's hard to capture the correct experience from your gut. But you have to go off your gut. You have to go off your intuition to at least get a user there to start using it, and then give you feedback and adjust.
I have an interesting tangent there from another field that I worked in, and that was game design. And one of the things there that's really interesting is called Chase the Fun. And it's been a principle that has been becoming more important over like the last 10 years, where if something doesn't work, don't continue iterating on it. Take that idea apart and try to make something new with it. And I think at its core, if you apply that, obviously outside game design, to anything else that you're working with, any other product, you will... and you start kind of cutting away the edges of the things that you just really don't like, you end up with the thing and you understand what is really important, not just to you, obviously, as the super user of this product, but also then to the actual end user. Because one of the things that we can kind of get a bit bogged down in is working on something and being really passionate about it, especially the initial vision, but you only really realize if it is going to solve the problem, for instance, or actually accomplish what you thought it would, once you kind of get to about, I don't know, 50% there or 70%. And it's a tough choice then to like throw something out and start over, but you just have that kind of intuitive, innate feeling if you are on track or not.
How many times have we done that?
Yeah, like at this point, hundreds of times.
Yeah,
and
right.
It'll happen hundreds of times more, and it is just part of the creative process, really. That
hopefully thousands of times
drives us every day.
Yeah. I like that. Can we adopt that? Chase the fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love adopt that.
That's a great.
We'll make finance fun.
Yeah, chase the fun.
Well, it's also, yeah. I mean, the whole idea from game design and also with UI is that if something is just not working, stop trying to like tweak it and make changes to it. Throw it out. Start again. And we had one scenario where we did that early on, and we threw out a component, and only then do you realize that the absence of it is actually now causing issues. So often we will make, I wouldn't say often, I would say sometimes we make a decision where we throw out a component and we say, you know what, this is, it's not user intuitive, and we need to kind of, take a step back. But by removing it, I think we realize the actual user persona, which is someone who is intimately familiar with the data, will want this tool or this part of the platform to actually accomplish a really, really specific goal that I would say 90% of other users do not have. But having that available to them is detrimental to their jobs sometimes.
Yeah.
Chase the fun reminds me
that.
a little bit of like first principle thinking, right? Like, but if it's a problem solving, kind of mantra or approach that, breaking down a proposition by undercovering like its underlying assumptions or facts or whatever, right? And so if you get too far down the rabbit hole and trying to solve a problem, the best thing to do is to unravel it and start over, because you probably don't understand the actual problem you're trying to solve, right? You just keep on fixing little things that are broken with the same sort of mindset. It's almost like touching the burner over and over and over again. So sometimes you have to go back to the beginning and make sure you understand what problem you're actually trying to solve. And oftentimes you end up coming out with something different, right? Just like you said, Chase.
Correct.
chase the fun.
The other thing is, if you do not chase the fun and you just keep kind of fixing the thing, you become emboldened and you become overly attached with that thing that you're working on. It's similar to, you having a car and you polish it and you see a little blemish and you keep polishing that over and over and over and you just keep going. And at some point, it's not really about the car anymore, it's about the polish. So, what was really the reason that you did this to begin with?
OCD.
I've seen that over and over in my career. Seen it over and over. Well, you're falling victim to, your own confirmation bias, and it's seen it over and over and over. The sunk cost fallacy as well.
Right.
Yeah.
You've invested so much time in this one thing. How could you dare throw it away?
Right.
Because we've spent so much time on it. We've written so many lines of code.
How many times has that been argued?
Yeah.
Right.
We've written so many pieces
as
of
leaders
content.
in our career. As leaders in our career, how many times has someone come to us and said, but we've sunk, a year into this, or we've sunk months into doing this. We have to finish it. When you can very clearly see it's a failure. That's
not working.
No, I've seen that over and over in my career. So Andrew, hit on kind of probably the final question here of, there's 100 FinOps products or cost management products. There's dozens and dozens of ways of solving cost issues in cloud. What makes Tenacity's approach, from your point of view as a chief engineer, what makes Tenacity's approach different from a user experience perspective, or from any perspective? Tell us why it's different. Tell us why people should look at Tenacity.
I think they should look at Tenacity first and foremost, and if I can say this, because it's no bullshit. The way we present things is the way it is, and we help you achieve your goals, not our goals. A lot of times in my experience, and this is not just FinOps, when you're working with apps that try to surface some data, it's always from the context of the app, which is not really useful whatsoever. And quite often, as you start working with the app, and now you've already invested money and interest and time into it, you realize that it's not going to solve your actual problem, which means it's a complete waste of time. With Tenacity AI, one thing that we're specifically doing is we have multiple pillars of the app where you get to choose what you want to fix and accomplish. But at its core, every single piece of the app integrates with every other piece. So doing something in one area will yield savings in our other area. So it's kind of a circular kind of working. It's kind of, let me restate that. In that sense, everything is interconnected, so that solving a problem in one area solves it in another.
Can I add on to that? I think where you're getting at is like each area kind of has an influence, right? Because you're absolutely right. So many apps, 99% of the apps that I've used in my career, their approach is the context of the app itself. So they're going to give you data that's app contextual. And we, from the beginning, had a tenet that we want this to be business contextual. It was the very first piece of feedback that we got from users. When we went out and we combed the industry, we kept hearing over and over and over, all these tools give me data in their context. I want it in my business context. So in our platform, you can go into one area and you can actually start building business context. You can actually start building out allocations and favorites and views and how do I look at this? What are my tenants? What are my customers? What are my billing groups? What are my apps, et cetera? And then you can look at everything else in the portal that way, everything else in the platform that way. When you go and you affect a savings rate or you affect your commitment utilization, right, it then has an impact on those views and what's in those views and how those filter down. So, we're really highly focused as an engineering team, even in what, how contextually a user gets to their what's important to them.
Yeah, you said it much better than I did. especially
I couldn't
the
have said it
contextual
if you
part.
hadn't said what you said. So.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
especially the part that you touched on, though, with the contextual views is really interesting, simply because those are reflected in every other part of the portal, and they will, they immediately contextualize every single part of the portal to your needs, no matter where you are. So at all times, the app is not pushing its own agenda. It is literally saying, okay, this is your environment. This is not anything that, we're pointing the things out, but this is your context.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think that's a good note to wrap it on. Any parting words, Andrew or Jason?
Keep chasing
Thanks
the
for
fun.
being. Yeah, keep chasing the fun. Thanks for joining us, Andrew. Really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no problem. Was fun.
Awesome. Very good. Well, hey, to our listeners, go out and check out tenacity.ai. Reach out to us anytime. Andrew's a whole lot of fun to talk to, so we're happy to get you on a call with him or hook up with him on LinkedIn. Anyway, keep tuning into the Cloud Cost Optimization podcast, where we'll continue to talk about topics like this, and we'll do some more interviews, probably with Andrew as well, diving into some of those more nuanced components of how to get context in your financial data and fix your cloud spending. That's it for today. Thanks, everyone.